Hi, it's Jenny with Jenny's Wreath Boutique, and in this video I'm going to share with you my essential wreath making tools, and I'm going to share with you some other tools that I also find helpful. But before we get into this, I just want to let you know that the tools, my essentials, are linked in the description under tools, and I will link as much as I can of what I'm talking about here so you can easily find it. If you love wreath making and are excited for this video, give it a thumbs up and subscribe to my channel if you haven't done that yet. All right, let's get into the most important things first. First and foremost, you got to be able to cut the florals. These are my favorite wire cutters. They are amazing. I wouldn't recommend them if I didn't love them. And I'm just going to share a few things about why I love them. They are an investment. They're about $30 to $40, but life-changing. So much better than what you would get at the craft store. Okay, quick little story. I was teaching a wreath making class. It was one of my first ones, and I bought these little wire cutters from the craft store. It was either Walmart or Michael's, I can't remember. And I thought, since there's gonna be a lot of people there, I want everyone to have their own wire cutters. And obviously I'm not gonna spend $30 to $40 for each person to have their own wire cutters. So I brought mine, of course. And then I bought those other ones so everyone could have one. They were just a few dollars. What ended up happening is I ended up going around every table and either letting them use these or cutting the things up for them. Holy cow, they were horrible. They looked very similar to this, but they did not cut anything close. So these are not spring-loaded. I get that question a lot because a lot of people, you don't want to have to open it again, but they're heavy. So they're not spring-loaded, but the gravity, I'm like not touching it. Gravity literally makes it fall, so it's as if they're spring-loaded. It doesn't take any effort. So I know I'm talking a lot about these, but they're so good. Love them. They actually were my husband's. He used these in his job. These were his work electrical cutters, and so I took them when I started wreath making, and I still use the original pair 7 years later, and they're working great. I also bought a second pair because I lost my first ones and my husband kept borrowing them. So I have two pairs now, and the originals cut just as well as the new pair. So amazing, amazing. Oh, I also wanted to show you how easy the wire cutters cut things. Look at this. Piece of cake. Super easy. Second is my hot glue gun. I love this. This is not an expensive one. This is about $10. I think it's a little under $10. It's the AdTech dual temp. So we have hot and or high and low. I use it on high 99% of the time, but if I'm using something like floral foam and I don't want anything to melt, I will use the low, or if I'm adding moss to floral foam, which I will talk about later in this video. But this is my favorite. So if you remember, when I moved, I talked about this in some videos and on stories on Instagram. I lost this and I was so sad. So I was sent two glue guns that are more expensive than this from a company. And so I was using those as a replacement until I found this. And one of them broke the first time I used it. It just stopped working. And the other one was just a little bit inconvenient. There are things I like about it. I won't say the brand, but I love this one better. And then also, while those other two I was trying out weren't great, and I still hadn't found my original, I picked up the Gorilla Glue version, and I do like the heavy dutiness of this one, although it's not as pretty on camera. And this also has the low and high temp. So I like that it has high heat, the option of having low heat, and it's like a professional one, so it spits out the glue quickly. But I don't know if you can see the difference in the tips. I prefer the tip on this one. This one does spit out glue quickly, so does this one, but this one is a little bit more refined, so it's cleaner. So it's more precise. So this one's about twice the price of this one. Yeah, something like that. So I prefer this one. I'm telling you. Also, to go back to that wreath making class, I also bought a bunch of little hot glue guns, and they weren't great. I mean, they worked okay. It was the same brand as this. They were small, but oh my goodness, it took forever. So if you want to save money and buy the cheaper version that's a few dollars, that's totally fine, but this is just so much easier, so much faster. I hear a lot of people say, how do you make wreaths so fast? I'm telling you, having this is very helpful with that, and having a good pair of wire cutters. Next is the hot glue that I use. And see, these are the larger size. I like to use Gorilla Glue hot glue sticks. They bond wood, metal, glass, plastic, floral, fabric, leather, foam, and more. These are the 8" by 0.43". That's my favorite. It's good for high temperatures and low temperatures. It works. And it's great for outside weather. It can withstand very cold and it can withstand high heats outside. So this is great. When I first got into wreath making, I had a wreath on my front door during the summer. It was a forsythia wreath and it was beautiful. I loved it. But I noticed some pieces were falling off. It was 100 degrees outside or more, and it was baking in the sun, and there were just pieces falling off. That was horrible. So, and I'd also had some customers, this was very, very early on, my very first year, say that some pieces fell off and it was due to the glue not withstanding the hot temperatures. So I haven't had that problem since I switched to these. The next thing I like to use is floral wire. This is essential. I use this to secure stems to grapevines all the time, and I use it for hoop wreaths and things like that. Very versatile, very inexpensive. I prefer the 24 gauge. It's the perfect happy medium between the 22, which is a little too stiff for me, and the 26 gauge, which is just a little too soft. This is just perfect for me. Also, one thing I really love is a silicone mat. I like this color because it matches my table and looks better on video, but really any color is fine. I used to have a bright pink one. But this is great for keeping your space clean. If you like to just make wreaths, well, really, if you're making them all the time, it's great to have. But even if you make them at your kitchen table, I started making them at my kitchen table, and I would put maybe a piece of cardboard or something messy, but this is great because it catches the hot glue, obviously, and the hot glue just beads up on it and you can just pop it right off. It cleans up super, super easily and protects your surfaces. So highly, highly recommend this. If I was wreath making without doing videos and the aesthetic didn't really matter, I would probably use this silicone mat. This is great. This is from Sure Bonder, and it's got little measurements on it. I don't know if you can see from the video, but it has the measurements on it, and it's big, so it'll really keep your space clean, which is great if you're using something like a glue pot. All of those things that I just talked about are linked in the description under tools. So I'm also going to go on and tell you a bit more about some things that I like to use, but those that I just talked about, absolute essentials. I could not do it without it. I could probably do it without the silicone mat, but I wouldn't be happy. The next thing I like to use is jute twine. I use this for a couple different things. I like to make a loop on the back of my grapevine wreaths so they're easy to hang. Then I also like to use it on the hoop wreaths to cover up the florals in the end. I will show you an example. So this is a hoop wreath set. There's 3 different ones here. There's a big one and a medium one and a small one. Aren't these so cute? This is a trio that we just made in my VIP group. Isn't this so cute? But look, you can see the jute twine. I've wrapped it around. So it's really useful for that. Also, I wanted to show you the floral wire that I'm using that I just talked about is very helpful for hoop wreaths, although it's not the only thing I use to make hoop wreaths. Another thing that's really helpful when making wreaths, but not necessary, are these wooden picks. I really like using these because you just get them at Michael's. But if you have a leaf or a stem or something that just isn't quite long enough to go into the grapevine, or you're using floral foam, these can be really helpful. So you just take, although this is probably fine, you just take, this has a little wire on it, and you take it and you just wrap it around your little, whatever you want to use. I like to also dab some glue there, and then it just sticks in way easier. See, it's got that point right there. I really like it. So like I said, this is really helpful for floral foam. Another thing, if you are using floral foam a lot to make arrangements, and I'm going to go into things like that, like the bases I like to use and what I like to use with those in just a minute. But if you don't use a ton of floral foam, I think you can get away, which is like me, I don't use it a ton. These work fine. But also, if you are using floral foam to make arrangements or use on wreaths a lot, I would recommend a steel pick machine. I personally do not have one. They are expensive, and I don't use floral foam as often as a lot of other people. So if you use it a lot, a steel pick machine can be very helpful. You just stick your stem or leaf or whatever it is, and you'll like crank the handle, put it in there, and you'll have a steel pick attached, and it's very strong. And that leads me to my next thing, which is floral foam. This is just a piece I've been using. I don't use huge pieces, but you can just see how easy that sticks in there. And the same with the steel picks. These are good. If you're using faux florals like I do, you don't want to use the stuff that's made for fresh florals that can get wet, like Oasis and things like that. So you want to use the styrofoam kind of thing if you're using faux florals. So I'd like to dab glue and then place it in here. I've got all kinds of different kinds of floral foam, and I usually just use little pieces like this. I do have a couple videos here on YouTube. I will link them in the description where I use floral foam. When I'm using floral foam, I like to use a glue pot. This one is from Surebonder with Grace Monroe Home. This was their special edition one, and it's so cute, and I've got some hardened glue in there. And I will link a video where I talk more about that. And it's actually one where I use floral foam and a hoop wreath. So it's such a cute Christmas wreath. And then with these, I have the pellets in here. They're the Surebonder Skillet glue, but you can also cut these up and stick them in there as well. You don't need the Surebonder glue, but they sent them to me and I love using them. So just wanted to share that. This is stuff that's not necessary. The things I talked about in the beginning, those are my essentials. These are nice to have. So just want to distinguish that. You don't need to get all of this stuff if you're starting to make wreaths. The next thing I want to share with you are the bases that I use. I like to keep it simple, and if you've followed me a while, you know that my most favorite kind of wreath base is a grapevine. I like to get these from Michael's Pro Packs mainly, but I just love grapevines. This is a 14-inch I use all the time. I also go bigger. I use 18-inch bases, and I also very occasionally use a 24-inch base if a customer requests an extra large wreath. I am happy to make that because I have those larger wreaths in stock. But I also go as small as a 6-inch grapevine. I use this for my mini wreaths, which are so fun and cute to make. They make great candle rings, but I also get these from Michael's and Hobby Lobby. And then I also like to use hoop wreaths. These are the wooden embroidery hoops, which are probably my favorite because they have a little bit of friction on them so they can hold the wire. So there are different ways to make hoop wreaths. I've shared a couple here on YouTube. I've got more in my VIP group where I share other things, and you can use the same technique for bead hoop wreaths. I have a great tutorial in my VIP group with a succulent bead hoop wreath. It's so pretty. So I like to use these embroidery hoops, different sizes. This is a 14-inch size. It makes a good front door wreath size, but you can also get smaller to make a wreath trio like I showed you earlier. And then I like metal hoops. So cute, and they're a little more slippery, but they work great with the floral wire method. So you could use floral foam, floral wire, or you can use a grapevine garland. I like having grapevine garland on hand because it makes making hoop wreaths easier. And of course you'll need floral wire with that as well. And then the last thing I like to keep on hand, it's moss. I specifically like Spanish moss. It's really natural looking and neutral, not super bright. And you can use that to glue on the low setting. That's one of the rare times I use the low setting on my hot glue gun. I don't have any with me to show you, but I'll put a picture up. So Spanish moss is more of the brown color, and it just really covers the foam up nicely. And then also, if you have a lot showing on the back of the wreath, I don't use anything really to cover up the back because it usually looks pretty nice. But if there's a lot of stuff showing, you can just dab a little bit of glue and add a little bit of Spanish moss to cover it up, and it'll look beautiful and natural. I'm all about things looking natural. And that is it. Those are my most used items, my essentials, and what I also like to use but aren't necessarily essential. Let me know if you use any of those things and if we have similar essentials. And like I said, I will link everything that I can below. All right, I hope you enjoyed, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye.